As of this recording, the Eagles just got obliterated in the wildcard game by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this past Monday, 32-9. This is 1 year removed from them being 3 points away from winning a Super Bowl for the second time in 5 years, this time with a seemingly unstoppable team across the board. They're expected to maintain this momentum and go even further this season, even added such stars such as Shaq, Leonard, and Kevin Byard. People online and in the media are assigning blame to many different parties involved, and there are a lot of faults with this team that were not really magnified during the regular season, but it starts and ends with certain factors, and that's what we're going to discuss in this video. If you guys are new to the channel and you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so you don't miss future uploads, and also be sure to leave a comment down below giving me your feedback as well as what you might want to see down the line. With that being said, let's get right into it. The Philadelphia Eagles last season seemed to be the most unstoppable team in all of football. They went 14-3, which was tied for the best record in the entire league with the Kansas City Chiefs, and the undisputed best record in the NFC. They were third in total points per game, third in total yards, had the fourth lowest amount of turnovers, were fifth in total rush yards, and led the entire league in rushing touchdowns. And that's barely scraping the surface of what they're able to accomplish on the offensive side. On defense, they were fourth in total turnovers forced, they led the league in pass yards allowed, second in total yards allowed, eighth in points per game allowed. They allowed 4.8 yards per play, which led the NFL, and outscored their opponents by almost 8, which was third in the NFL. They outscored their opponents in the playoffs by a total of 69-14 before meeting the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl, where they would command a 10-point lead in the half before getting outscored in the second half by 13. Losing that game 38-35. Despite the loss, the Eagles, who had 6 All-Pros on their roster, had high hopes going into the 2023 season and were immediate favorites to win the NFC once again, as they were preseason favorites, according to Pro Football Reference, to win the conference. Despite losing players like C.J. Gardner-Johnson, T.J. Edwards, thank you, Javon Hargraves, and more. Throughout the season, they acquired Shaq Leonard off of waivers from the Colts, and they traded Terrell Edmonds, a 5th-round pick, and a 6th-round pick to the Titans for all-pro safety Kevin Byard. To add even more fuel to the fire, they added Jalen Carter with the 9th overall pick in the 2023 draft. They started off the season very well on paper, going 10-1 during the first 11 games and averaging 28.2 points per game during that span. 8 of those wins came within 1 score, and 4 of those 1-score wins came against teams who finished below 500 records, but that doesn't really matter too much as long as they get the W. However, in their last 6, they would go 1-5, averaging 20.5 points per game, and in each of their losses, they lost by an average of 13.4. 2 of those losses also came against teams under 500, and 2 of those losses also came in blowouts against the 49ers and the Cowboys by 23 and 20 respectively. It's about how you finish though, and the Eagles finished good enough to make the playoffs with an 11-6 record, which brings us to our next topic.
We want the ball, we're going to score.
The Philadelphia Eagles were first place in the NFC East for the majority of the 2023 season, and they were expected to gain the number 1 seed in the NFC for most of the season before their disastrous ending, which would have them drop to the 5th seed in the NFC, which meant not only would they not win their division that the Cowboys inevitably won, but they would lose home field advantage going into the playoffs, meaning they would be going into Raymond James Stadium to face the 9-8 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Bucs would go into the 2023 season unsure of their future after Tom Brady retired for the 2nd time that offseason. They would go on and sign Baker Mayfield, who would go on to have probably the best season of his career up to this point, to go with a very strong supporting cast consisting of Mike Evans, Rashad White, and Chris Godwin. The Bucs in the final week of the season were still fighting with the Falcons and the Saints for leadership of the NFC South, with them needing a single win to end the race, which they did get with a 9-0 victory over the 2-15 Carolina Panthers. That is not a typo. They scored 9 points, 0 of them coming from a touchdown, versus the undisputed worst team in football. Granted, the defense for Carolina wasn't that bad this season, but 9 points against the Panthers was a hilarious way to end the season. If you were someone who didn't follow the NFL week by week this season, you would assume that the NFC champs, even without home field, would go into Tampa and kick the ever-living shit out of the Buccaneers out of pure desperation, if nothing else. That's what you would think, but let me walk you through what actually happened. The Eagles walked into Raymond James Stadium and got the absolute shit beaten out of them, losing this game 32-9. The Eagles defense allowed 426 total yards, and the offense only had the ball for a whopping 26 minutes of the game, compared to the Buccaneers, who held the ball for over 34 minutes. The Eagles had one offensive touchdown, a pass from Jalen Hurts to Dallas Goedert, but they missed out on a 2-point conversion attempt after the Bucs became one of the very few teams this season to stop the tush push. It's also worth noting that one of their All-Pros, A.J. Brown, injured his leg in the regular season finale and missed this game, but Devontae Smith stepped up big time despite the loss. What's funny is not Evans, Godwin, nor White led the Buccaneers in total yardage in this game. In fact, Evans and Godwin combined for a total of 93 yards. It was tight end Cade Otton, very underrated by the way, who led the game for Tampa Bay in both receptions and yards. This was a miserable outing for this team and a blow to them after failing to capitalize on the momentum that they were able to accrue following last season's success. There were many problems with this game as well as the regular season as a whole, but I'm only going to list what I feel are more important reasons, which will lead us into the transition to the next part of this video.
Fuck you, Jalen Hurts! Fuck you, you suck!
Jalen Hurts is someone who I've wanted to talk about for a while now, but this blunder has really given me an opportunity to do so. Here's a hot take, and you could chalk it up to recency bias or whatever, but Jalen Hurts is just as system-made, in my opinion, as Brock Purdy. I know I probably just ruffled some feathers and y'all are typing as we speak, but just hear me out on this one. Brock Purdy always gets the criticism that he's nothing without the Kyle Shanahan system and the Pro Bowlers and All-Pros that surround him, and he was shit on relentlessly for sucking ass, despite playing with concussion-type symptoms and missing Deebo Samuel. But what would you call Jalen Hurts? He has multiple All-Pro players on both sides of the ball for his team and many Pro Bowl caliber players. But as soon as A.J. Brown went down, the Eagles scored 9 points against the Buccaneers team that they beat by double digits the last time they met. For anyone who would like to make the argument that he carried them through that 10-1 span, I would like to counter with the fact that he had 14 turnovers during 11 games, which was more than some of the worst performing starting quarterbacks in the NFL this season, like Zach Wilson and Bryce Young, while putting him at the same level in that category with the likes of Desmond Ridder and Mac Jones. I don't want to hear anything about the tush push either, because any one of us could get 15 rushing touchdowns with 5 300-pound plus men pushing on us 3 feet forward. Pause, but you get the point. Among all quarterbacks, he had the most rushing attempts in the league and was third in total rush yards behind Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields, with whom the latter missed 4.5 games this season. He also finished near the bottom of the league among starting quarterbacks in total yards per game, which eliminates him from any conversation of being an effective dual-threat quarterback in my eyes. Any tweak to that system, and he shatters. And there were indeed tweaks to that system, as I'll go over more in later detail, but the Eagles let go of both Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen last season after their top offense and defense helped take him to the Super Bowl. Hurts had a really good season with Steichen, and as soon as they brought on Brian Johnson, he, as well as the Eagles as a whole, on offense fell off a cliff. You can absolutely credit some of that to Johnson, as you should, but it's also a testament to how much Jalen Hurts has regressed in such a short period of time with an even stronger supporting cast. My main example here is look what Justin Herbert was able to do following Steichen's exit from the Chargers, as opposed to what Hurts did with a much, much stronger team. I shared my opinion on Hurts recently on Twitter and got called racist for it, but I'm going to double down. Jalen Hurts is not a bad quarterback, and with everything going right, he can be elite, but he's not a game changer, and the exact same can be said about Brock Purdy or even like Tua, which is why I'm making the comparison I'm making. I want to clarify this before we go any further. There's absolutely nothing wrong with stacking your team up with excellent players. If you're able to make it work salary-wise as well as fit, then go for it. However, that doesn't mean you can't rate players accordingly despite their reputation, and Jalen Hurts did not live up to expectations despite his reputation by any means this year. Not everyone can hold the Lombardi at the end of the season, and that's okay, but the expectation set on this Eagles team just to have what happened to them happen should be fucking embarrassing to Hurts as the leader of the team and the coaching staff. Which brings us to our final topic, but before I dive into that, I'd like to reassure Eagles fans that there's a lot that you guys don't know. In fact, you don't know what you don't know.
The smartest man alive!
For a little bit of context, the Eagles had the second highest screen rate for wide receivers and tight ends and was near the bottom of the league in success rate. As a Bears fan who's had to deal with watching my team drop and poorly execute screen passes all season, I sympathize with Eagles players and fans alike. Therefore, the remainder of this video will include screen passes drawn up by Philadelphia's coaching staff and its very poor execution. I covered Nick Sirianni a bit in a video I made recently where I discussed head coaches that I would either cut, extend, or bring back for one more year, which I will leave in the description of this video as well as in the end screen if you don't feel like digging through my description box. I said in that video that Sirianni was essentially an overachiever in spite of the talent around him and just had a loser mentality as a whole, celebrating wins versus mediocre teams like he just won a Super Bowl and doing metaphorical victory laps after the Eagles defeated the Chiefs in a regular season rematch. At the end of this segment, I said that I would keep Sirianni under the condition that the Eagles did not shit themselves this postseason. And in case you couldn't tell by my tone throughout this video and the evidence that I've presented to you up to this point, I would absolutely cut Nick Sirianni. I would have cut him the second he went back to the locker room following that prison beating. I read somewhere that he's planning to present his case to Eagles owner Jeffrey Lurie this week, and if it goes at all how it went for Doug Peterson, a guy who actually helped his team win a Super Bowl, it's not looking good for him. I don't usually root for people to lose their jobs, but this is the only exception, no Paramore. I actually feel bad for Eagles fans. Yeah, and a Bears fan who hasn't seen his team win a playoff game since the age of 9, I'm 22 now by the way, feels genuine sympathy for an organization that's been to 2 Super Bowls since 2018. This is what the world has come to. More of a reason to blame Sirianni is he was a part of promoting QB coach Brian Johnson to OC following Jane Steichen's exit, who has fucking sucked this year big time, as you can probably tell by these wonderful screen passes. Sean Desai was the DC for the first 11 games of the season during that 10-1 stretch, following their losses to the 49ers and Cowboys where they let up 42 and 33 points respectively. They demoted Desai and brought on Matt fucking Patricia. If you remember from my video I made on the Patriots a few months ago, I mentioned how Patricia failed miserably as a head coach in Detroit and was brought on to be the offensive coordinator in New England, where their offense dropped exponentially from 2021 to 2022. I guess the Eagles thought to themselves, I know how to improve the defense. Let's have someone who fucking sucks on offense called defense. Surely that'll go well. And it failed miserably as they allowed 28.7 points per game in the final 4 games of the season that Patricia called. In conclusion, because I can go on and on about this team's failures, this season is exactly that, a failure. I'm not saying they absolutely had to win a Super Bowl. I'm not even saying they had to make the Super Bowl. An NFC championship game was their floor, and they couldn't even match it. It wasn't all one party, and a combination of the play on the field, play calling, coaching, front office incompetence, and much, much more. Because at the end of the day, this is a team game where if something goes wrong, chances are it's not just one person's fault. Despite how harsh I was on Jalen Hurts a few minutes ago, it's not majorly his fault. This team and its coaching failed him. Like I said, it's a team game, and everybody plays their part in each of these wins and losses. In my opinion, I think starting from scratch with the coaching staff and bringing back everyone you can, which won't be a given considering how many free agents you have to re-sign this season, and certainly won't be able to retain all of them, should be the move. But what do you think? Be sure to let me know your opinions down in the comment section below, as well as your overall feedback on the video itself. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will try to see you guys next week, but my schedule is getting busier and busier, so that's not going to be a given. But regardless, I will keep you guys updated in my community tab. Be sure to follow my Twitter at KLA_backup, link in the description, and join my Discord so you can get updates on when videos come out as well. Once again, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys soon. Peace out.